What's up guys, Groovy Guitar Dude here with the beginner guitar tutorial for Your Power by Billie Eilish. If this video helps you out, hit that like and subscribe button and let me know in the comments down below what are the songs by Billie Eilish that you want to learn on guitar. Guys, the first thing you want to know to play Your Power on guitar is that we're going to be in standard tuning and we will not need a capo to play this song. The next thing we'd usually go over for a song is the structure, but for Your Power we're actually going to repeat the same chord progression through the entire song, so you don't need to worry about the structure for this one. And the last thing you want to know before we dive into Your Power is the three chords that you need to play this song. The first one is F major 7. The next one is A minor. And the last one is this really long named G variation. You don't need to worry about the name for this one, but it looks like this, just has a third fret on the low E and nothing else. Everything else is open. That's what it sounds like. I'll have chord charts for all of those in the pinned comment below for those of you who need them. And with all that in mind, guys, let's dive into Your Power. Guys, I am stoked to finally get into this one. This has been a little bit of a weird one because I've got a ton of requests for this, and I'm usually much quicker getting to the new Billie Eilish songs because I know you guys love to learn them, and this one has beautiful acoustic guitar through the whole thing. So this took me a little long to get to compared to other Billie Eilish songs that I usually get to much quicker when they first come out. But I'm stoked to finally share it with you guys. It's a beautiful song, and it's actually very beginner friendly. So the first thing we're going to take a look at for Your Power is the chord progression in the strum pattern that repeats through the whole entire song. The only other thing we're going to learn for this song other than that chord progression and strum pattern is the little intro and outro picking pattern that plays on top of this. There's two guitars in this, or really it might just be Phineas looping his guitar, so he might play the chords in the strum pattern and then loop that and then play the picking on top of it, but there's either two guitars or it's a loop. So in the intro and the outro there's a little picking thing. We'll go over that in a little bit, but the first thing and the main thing we want to go over is the chord progression and strum pattern that we're going to be repeating through the whole song, which is super beginner friendly. So with that in mind, guys, the chord progression we're going to be using for this entire song is going to be F major 7, F major 7 again, A minor, and then that G variation. So that's going to be our chord progression, just those three chords in that order. And what we're going to be doing for our strum pattern is a very common strum pattern. For each chord, we're going to play down, down, up, just about like that for each chord. Now, through our chord progression, that'll look about like this played through and kind of walked through together. We'll start with that F major 7. We'll go down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. Just about like that. And that's going to repeat through pretty much the whole entire song. Now, that chord progression repeats through the whole song, but sometimes what we're doing with our strum pattern changes up just a little bit. So when we're in the verses and when we're in the intro and outro, it pretty much is just flat out like we just played it. It's just down, down, up with nothing else in there. Sometimes though, particularly in the pre-choruses and the choruses, it switches to a little bit more of a palm muted down, down, up, down, up. And it's the same chord progression, same strum pattern, but all you're doing is you're going to rest the soft part of your strumming hand here on your strings. You're going to play it kind of like, that, just a little bit more muted and a little bit more muffled. Now, you can just play the whole entire song just straight up, just with the chord progression in the regular strum pattern with no palm muting, but it's up to you if you want to add a little variety in there. That's what it sounds to me like they're doing, is it's basically playing full out strum pattern, no palm muting in the verses and in the intro and outro, but then in the choruses and the pre-choruses, it sounds like what they're doing is muffling it right there with some palm muting. Totally up to you, totally up to your interpretation and what you want to do as far as covering this song. But what I'm going to teach is just that chord progression and strum pattern, because you can totally use that through the entire song, and it is the most beginner-friendly way to play this. So one more really quick little walkthrough, and then we'll do a playthrough together. Again, start with that F major 7. We'll go down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. Just like that, repeated through the whole entire song. Unless you want to play the little intro picking pattern and outro picking pattern, or also, again, if you want to palm mute that in certain parts of the song to match up better with what's being played in the song, you totally can. So with that in mind, guys, a couple of times through the chord progression and strum pattern, it's going to repeat all the way through Your Power. Will look about like this without me talking. from there, guys, the only other things you need to know to play your power on guitar is that little picking pattern that's being played through the intro and the outro. Now, like I said, this is kind of optional because it is a second guitar that's being played here on top of the chord progression, or again, it could be Phineas just kind of looping that track underneath or actually on top of the chords that are already being played. So it's totally up to your interpretation. If you're just doing an acoustic cover of this, I would probably just play the chords and strum pattern. But if you have multiple guitarists with you, or if you actually have a loop station and want to experiment with that, this is that picking pattern or very close to it. So just for reference, this entire picking pattern is going to take place between the 3rd fret and the 9th fret on the guitar. And it's not terribly difficult, especially because it's played at a fairly slow pace, but it is a little bit more complex than the chord progression that we just used because that chord progression is very beginner friendly. But this picking pattern is still very beginner friendly, but it is kind of a lot to remember. So hang in there with me, we'll walk through this together. All right, we're gonna start up here with an 8th fret on the high E string. We're gonna pick that, and then we're gonna pick a 7th fret on the high E string, and then a 5th fret on the B string, and then we're going to go 6th fret on the B string, back to 5th fret on the B string, then we're going to go up to 8th fret on the B string, and then we're going to go up here to 9th fret on the D string, and 7th fret on the D string. And that's our first little section. We're going to split this up into 4 sections, and that's the first one. So a little walkthrough of what that'll look like, again, is we're going to have 8th high E, 7th high E, 5th B, 6th B, 5th B, 8th B, 9th D, 7th D. That's our first section. It'll look about like this full speed. That's our first section. That sounds super familiar. It's the very beginning of the song, and again, the outro, very end of the song as well. So from there, we're on to our second section out of 4. It's going to look very similar, but there's a few small changes. So we're going to again start with an 8th fret on the high E, 7th on the high E, 5th on the B, 6th on the B, 5th on the B. Here's where the change comes in. We're going to do 7th on the G, and let that ring out for just a second. Then we're going to go up here to the A string, and we're going to pick the 5th on the A string. We're going to hammer that on to the 7th, so just like that. And then we're going to slide that up and hit the 8th on the A string. And that's the end of the second section. So walking through that one more time again, we've got 8th high E, 7th high E, 5th B, 6th B, 5th B, and then 7th G. Let that ring out. And we go up to the A string. We've got 5 hammer on to 7 on the 8th. And then 8th. About like that. Closer to full speed. Just about like that, and that'll lead into our third section. Our third section is exactly the same as the first section. We don't have to learn anything new for the third section. So again, it's the same as the first section we did, but just to show you again, it's that 8th high E, 7th high E, 5th B, 6th B, 5th B, and then we go to the 8th B, and then 9th on the D, 7th on the D. And that's our third section, again, which is the same as the first section. From there, we're on to our fourth section, which is our last one for this picking pattern. And after this last one, we're completely out of it and into the first verse, or if you're in the outro, we're out of the entire song. So this is the last little section here. For this last little section, we're going to hit a 3rd fret on the B string, and we're going to slide it up to 5th, like that. And then we're going to pick the 5th fret on the B string 2 more times. And then we're going to go back down to the 3rd fret on the B string and pick that 2 times. And then 5th fret on the G string. Let that ring out for just a sec. And then we're going to go 5th fret on the G string again, 4th fret on the G string. And that will take us out of our intro and outro picking pattern. And again, if you're in the intro, it'll go straight into that verse chord progression. If you're in the outro, it'll take you out of the song from that point. So one time real quick, full speed through that last 4th section, look about like this. just about like that. And that is the entire intro, outro picking pattern for your power. Now, that is maybe a little bit of a simplified version. Again, there's probably 2 guitars here that are actually going on, or again, it might be Phineas looping the chord progression and playing this little picking pattern on top of that. But this is maybe a little bit more of a beginner-friendly version of what's actually being played. This is the closest that I could get by ear in a very simplified version. This is very beginner-friendly. It's just a lot to remember. So best thing I would recommend for this thing and any picking pattern or really anything you're learning on guitar, if you're struggling with this, is just practice it really, really slow and then work on getting it to full speed from there. That's exactly what I do with any picking pattern like this that's either complex or just a lot to remember. So before we do a little playthrough of that, we'll do a slow playthrough and a fast playthrough here in a little bit, but let's do one more walkthrough together of what that whole picking pattern will look like all together. So starting with our first section here, we're gonna go 8th fret on the high E, 7th fret on the high E, 5th on the B, 6th on the B, 5th on the B, 8th on the B, 9th on the D, 7th on the D. That's our first section. Second section goes 8th on the high E, 7th on the high E, 5th on the B, 6th on the B, 5th on the B. We got 7th on the G next. Let that ring out for just a second. Then we go up to that A, 5th hammer onto 7th, and then 8th fret on the A. And then that takes us out of our second section onto our third section, which is the same as the first section. So again, 8th on the high E, 7th on the high E, 5th on the B, 6th on the B, 5th on the B, 8th on the B. And then we go up to our D string 9th fret, 7th fret D string. Then we're on to our fourth and last section for this picking pattern. We're going to go to 3rd fret on the B. We're going to slide it up to 5th, pick 5th twice, 3rd fret on the B twice, and then 5th on the G, small pause here, and then 5th on the G, 5th on the G, 4th on the G to take us out of that picking pattern. Just like that. That's the whole picking pattern walkthrough, guys. And again, that will just play once through for the intro, once through for the outro. And the entire rest of the song is just going to be that chord progression and strum pattern that we went over earlier. So again, guys, I'm going to play through that once very slowly so that you can make sure you have all the right stuff in all the right places. And then I'll play through it once full speed so that you can match it up with the speed of the song. So slowly once first through the picking pattern that's going to play in the intro and the outro on your power will look about like this without me talking. And a couple of times full speed through the picking pattern that's going to play in the intro and the outro of Your Power by Billie Eilish will look about like this without me talking. And guys, that is everything you need to know to play Your Power on guitar. As always, if you have any questions, you can hit me up in the comments down below. I'm usually pretty quick getting back to those. And again, if this video helped you out, hit that subscribe button. I have about 850 other guitar and ukulele lessons on this channel. I usually try to post at least 3 to 5 new lessons every single week. So So if you're learning guitar or ukulele, there cannot be a more perfect channel for you to check out. If you want to get a sneak peek of what song I have coming next, be sure to hit up my Instagram at @thegroovyguitardude. And lastly guys, if you want to support the channel and get your name in the credits at the end of each new guitar tutorial, you can hit up my Patreon at patreon.com/thegroovyguitardude. Link for that will be in the description below as well. Guys, I'm so stoked to be finally sharing this song with y'all. I am usually so much quicker at getting to the new Billie Eilish songs, especially the ones with great acoustic guitar, and this is a great example of that because it has beautiful acoustic guitar the whole way through. It's fairly beginner friendly. Even that picking pattern is fairly beginner friendly as well, but especially the chord progression and strum pattern that repeats through the whole song. It's a really beautiful song. I don't know why it took me so long to get this one to you guys, but I'm stoked to finally have it come in y'all's way. Really great song. Again, the chords are a little bit weird in here. That F major 7 may be new to you guys, but it's actually one of the more beginner-friendly ways to play an F chord. A minor is pretty easy as well. And then that G chord has a ridiculously long name, but it's actually a super, super easy G chord. It's pretty much the easiest G chord you can play, where it's just one finger on the 3rd fret of the low E. And so I always thought it was so weird when I looked that chord up. When I was jamming on this, I found that chord, I looked it up, and I was like, why does this have such a long name? It's such an easy chord. Anyways, not the point, but really, really beautiful chord progression and also a very simple chord progression, and that is most of the song. You can literally, if you're doing an acoustic cover of this, I would recommend just playing just that chord progression and that strum pattern the whole way through. Maybe add some palm muting in various points of the song if you want to, it's up to you. But other than that, it's just that picking pattern that you're using for the intro and the outro, which is just kind of a nice little bonus thing. Beautiful, but not necessarily required to be able to play this song. It's totally up to you, especially if you're just doing an acoustic cover, to keep it as simple or as complex as you want it to be. And again, with that picking pattern, main thing I always say with picking patterns that are kind of a lot to remember, like this one, is just play it slowly. Don't worry about playing at full speed with the song until you get the whole thing memorized and get the whole thing down. Then you can build up your speed after you've practiced it slowly and kind of have the rest of it down. If you play it slowly, you can work your speed up gradually. So anyways, guys, I had a lot of fun learning this song. I hope you guys have a lot of fun learning it as well, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see y'all soon.